Okay, let's see if we can unpack what it is that is happening in the celestial conversations for this week ahead. It's Tuesday right now, Mars Day. So Mars is going to be playing a part of the consideration of what I'm going to share with you today. Now, two things happened yesterday. Venus ended its cycle of retrograde in Leo, which it has been there moving backwards since the 23rd of July. So a long season. And Jupiter, which is in Taurus, yesterday decided that it's going to now begin its retrograde cycle and it will be retrograde. Where is Jupiter? Jupiter. It's going to be retrograde till the end of the year. Yeah. When planets do that shift between forward motion and retrograde motion, which is just a factor that we here on planet Earth are, what shall we say, privileged in order to be able to experience that energy because they really don't go backwards. They're always moving forward, but from the perspective of our Earth orbit around the solar globe, yeah, they look like they're going backwards, which means that from the Earth perspective, they focus an energy on an area of us here on Earth more intensely during that retrograde cycle. They look like they're kind of going back over area that they've already covered. Well, Venus, doing that long jaunt in retrograde in Leo has, yeah, let's see, let's get a chart up here. So anyway, Venus, you can kind of see it down there in Leo, that white S, this is from yesterday. That means it's stationed. And so it's still sitting at 12 degrees today. And there's Jupiter down here. Red S, it just turned retrograde. And last night, about 4 o'clock in the morning, I got up and I went, oh, the moon moved up into a north. You can kind of see it higher up in the sky. And as I was looking up and seeing it, even though it was cloudy, I could see both the moon and Jupiter almost straight up above me at around 4 this morning. That's just, visual insight into the mechanics of what's going on. But let's look at Venus first. Venus is in Leo. Venus is, from the perspective of Libra, which is where Mars is currently. And by the way, Mars, as I said, I was going to make sure that I mention Mars today. Mars activates and energizes things. It's in Libra. Venus is, yes, ruler of Libra and also Taurus, which is where Jupiter is. But from the Libra perspective, and also from Venus's perspective of being in Leo, the taking of chances, gambling, these are kind of a Leonian kind of considerations. And how does Venus, that ruler of our relationships, function while it's in Leo? What the kinds of relationships that Leo tunes in on a little bit more intimately than other kinds of relationships are sparring. And I don't mean the kind of sparring where you're jousting with each other. I mean the kind of romantic energy of new love, that area of where I want to take a chance on being together with this person. So there's romance at the level of being more, a little bit more playful and adventurous in the experience of how does relationship come into play here. And, you know, always a word of caution when Leo's on the equation, because Leo, fifth house, is also about children. And children are a possibility when uh, playing around in the relationship field. Venus, having recently, for the long last couple months, been in retrograde, going through Leo, is, is giving us, if we're really paying attention, time to ponder, the appropriateness of what relationship factors are in play. And yet, as a yesterday, it's stationed to go direct. So once again, it's not necessarily the the mental machinations of trying to determine the value of our relationship paradigms so much as it is more of a positive kind of energy when it comes to that relationship field and how we want to energize it. I'm using energize it there very specifically, and that's because of the Mars being up there in Libra. Partnership, romantic involvement with one another is with Mars and Libra is activated, it's energized. And with Venus turning direct yesterday, that field of how we interact with one another is being amplified. We are, you kind of go, well, I was really considering relationship factors with whoever is on your wavelength, that I really wasn't quite that sure of it. This is while Venus was going retrograde in that Leo dance. But now, I'm taking a second look at it. Am I going to take a chance? More than likely, yes. I am going to take a chance with that field, because I've got that Martian energy there. It's pushing me to really, be out there, be more activated and energized by this process and this experience. So, for the next few weeks, while Venus is going to be going through the rest of Leo again on a forward trajectory, use it wisely. You've had a chance. Retrograde cycles, after all, are a good time to investigate things. But once it goes direct, the investigation process is over. There's a, process of going forward and, doing the things that you had contemplated. And what that is going to be for you as it needs to be for you. I can't tell you how that's going to be. All I can say is this is the kind of energy that is up right now. And Jupiter. Let's take a look at Jupiter. Jupiter over here in Taurus, our value structure, our money, our survivability of things. Jupiter, the largest planet in the solar system, that is about making things larger, don't hold back kind of thing. It's going into this retrograde cycle. Will be retrograde for the rest of the year, so we have to kind of really think hard on what is of value to me, and how large do I want to make it. Because if I make it too large and I can't control it, it's still going to spin large in perhaps an uncontrolled fashion, and that is not sustainable survival. Wisdom is required in this process right now as Jupiter does this retrograde cycle back through Taurus. It's still Jupiter. It still wants to, enhance things in a largesse fashion. So that structure of our money and our values, the things that we want to own, ownership. Yeah, there's another fine Taurian thing. They're on the table. And this may be an appropriate time to, you know, relinquish any, questionable strongholds that we may have on something physical, something mental, something emotional. They're all in that, as factors of survivability for each of us. And, our mileage is going to vary because each of us is going to tune into those different venues in fashions that are appropriate to us. It won't necessarily be the same as for anybody else. And just as a reminder, the Uranus factor also, which went retrograde, I believe, last week, not that long ago anyway, in Taurus, is saying, uh, don't be surprised if things get a little shaken up here. And Jupiter's enhancement of that shakeup experience won't necessarily always be minor, insignificant, small kind of things. No, not. It's Jupiter. Jupiter doesn't do things in a small fashion. So make sure that your seatbelts are fastened very well as we do this retrograde dance back through Taurus. And one other factor that I'm going to bring up for this week is our Mercury Sun dance, which is taking place over here in Virgo. Mercury, after all, is the ruler of Virgo. It's in retrograde. So here we get to Wednesday. On Wednesday, Mercury and the Sun are conjunct. See that? They're both there at 13 degrees of Virgo. And that's the term for when a planet gets into that conjunction thing with the sun is Kasimi. I think it's an old Arabic term. It kind of stands for in the heart of the sun, or in the throne of the king. After all, the sun is royalty. And so when a planet gets that close to royalty, it's being given an enhancement in some fashion as a recognition that, I, as a being, so celestial being, in this case, Mercury, how I think and how I communicate in Virgo in as organized a fashion as I possibly can, be inspired to be in that position of authority with the king and being given the permission from the king to make statements, be meaningful in how that mercurial factor is going to play out. The particular degree where this transpires, and this basically is going to be Wednesday and Thursday as they transfer over one another. And that mercurial energy is kicked up to the top of the pile, so to speak. Give them permission to sit on the throne, or however you want to see it. It is enhanced. But the Sabian symbol reads for this particular degree of the zodiac: an aristocratic family tree. That sounds rather solar in a way. Deep reliance is the keynote. Deep reliance upon the ancestral roots of individual character. Now, if we throw that together in the field of Virgo, you have to ask yourself, you know, am I really actually tuned into my ancestral linkage? Or is it just kind of this vague, floaty thing in the background that I may or may not pay attention to it too very often? Like everything else, your mileage may vary. As a shamanic practitioner, the ancestors, for me, play a substantial and significant role in the energy unfolding process of my discovery of what it means to be a soul being spawned through ancestral linkage from way, way back. And the ancestral energy is still very and quite present to inspire what it is that I resonate with. That's just my version of this ancestral linkage. More of the writing on this particular degree of the zodiac. Stressed here is the fact that the power available to anyone in time of crisis and decision has very deep roots in the past, whether the past of physical ancestry or the past outlined by a series of previous embodiments, conditioned by some dominant purpose and by the many phase development of a particular type of complex character. Whew, that's a lot of words. Quite the sentence. True spontaneity and creativity are always based on a structured sequence of antecedents if they are at all genuinely spiritual, i.e., if they are able to meet a collective need. Only the actions that are necessary, even if only in the long run, for meeting such a need can actually be called spiritual. This is not a minor dance that we infuse our soul being into when we incarnate here on earth to take on a human form. There's a responsibility factor always in play. How you play it is going to be up to you. I can only give you my perspective because my understanding of what it means to be a soul is that there is a very dynamic energy quotient that as a soul, we incarnate to embrace and grow into and allow to grow through us in our soul discovery that will can enhance the process of what it is we bring to light here in this earthly walk to share with one another as we combine our energies and our awareness and our soul perspectives to allow that growth experience to transpire between us as the embodiment of more than what it seems we really are. So while this Cassimi is going on Wednesday this week, by the way, Wednesday is a mercurial day. Mercury rules Wednesdays. So that's an extra enhancement to how we develop the technique, a technique any technique for that matter. But I'm really going to focus in on the technique of soul growth, because that's my inclination. I'm an Aquarius. My Mercury is in Aquarius, conjunct in the very same degree with Mars. So that Mars energy up there in Libra and the Venus factor that's in play this week, I want to be very clear that as a soul being, I am being overtly appropriate with how I embrace the field of relationship in any that I encounter in the current Earth walk. I don't really have a lot more to say about this week. There are other kinds of aspects that always form, but I'm only focusing in on the ones that intrigue me for today. So, thoughts to contemplate. How am I playing in my relationships? Is my understanding of value appropriate? And as a soul being, am I doing the things that are going to allow my soul to grow the most? That's all I got for this week. See you all next week. Ciao.